I think even grad school kind of teaches us that this is all you need. I kid you not, this deep feeling of practice. It's easier to fall behind when nobody's checking. Also helped me to learn the habit and rotation and ebbs and flows of my business. So I'm grateful that I joined that program before I even started my business. So I couldn't.
Hey, great day, everybody. Welcome officially to Mental Health Awareness Month. My name is Dr. TK, and in today's podcast, we're going to be doing something special. We are rolling out a list of epic therapists that are coming on to interview about how they got into the mental health field, what they're currently doing in the mental health field. And of course, one of your favorites is we are talking about how they are introducing different streams of income into their business while they also make an impact. And so in today's episode, we have one of our clients actually who has come to our live event. She's been part of our community, but she is doing some epic things. And I am going to allow her to do a little bit more of introducing herself and talking to you about what she is doing in the field. So I'm going to bring her on right now. Her name is Miss Alondra, and I'm going to bring her on to the podcast. Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I know that we've done these interviews before. This is the first time that we have had this many actually in 2025. We did about 3 in 2024. They were very received well. But just to give you some context as we go through the conversation today, is we have 3+ of different categories of people who watch the podcast, especially on YouTube. Then we also have the audio podcast. So especially on YouTube, we have a large group of psychology students. We also have them a lot on TikTok as well, because I answer a lot of their grad school and college questions and things like that. And then, of course, as you know, we have pre-licensed providers, those who are thinking about private practice or just their first stream of income. And then, of course, in the bracket you're in, we have individuals who already have a business, they have streams of income, they are looking to or already scaling their business. And so the main goal of these mental health awareness podcasts is not just to shed a light on great mental health providers exist, but we also want to shed light for the future and current clinicians, just to show them the diversification that you can do in your business and or in your career, because of course these things aren't talked about in grad school. So welcome. All right. So we always start off with this one question, and I'm always curious of the answer. So how did you get into the mental health field, or like, did it choose you? Give us a little bit of the backstory.
Sure. Okay. So I will first give my mom credit, who, when I was graduating high school, said you should be a psychology major. And like all great children, I was not a psychology major. I was actually a dance major with a double major in business. But life happened, some health stuff happened, and I wasn't able to take that journey. So fast forward a few years, and I was kind of on a personal search of like, okay, God, why am I here? Like, what's my purpose? I could do a lot of things well, but I didn't really feel like I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And I didn't just want to have a job, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of went on a journey with that. I discovered that it was counseling. It was the field of psychology that I needed to be in. So my mom was right, but that is where I needed to be. And I just kind of missed it, right? I thought that's just who I was. I was taking some things as personality traits that were actually my purpose. And it came natural to me. It came easy to me. So I never considered it. So I just decided like, okay, I'm going to go back to school, get my master's, get licensed, because if this is what I'm here for, then let me do all the things to get me into the space.
Wow, that's crazy. And then where did you land? Because I know that every state we have different acronyms, and not even all therapists know what different types of therapists there are with like the letters. And so how would you formally introduce yourself with all of like your titles and your letters to people who may not even know what these mean?
Sure. So at the time I was in the state of Illinois, where you become a licensed clinical professional counselor. Okay. So we had to take 2 exams. You take the licensed professional counselor. When you finish grad school, then you get your basically residency hours. And then you take a second exam completely over the DSM. And then you become a licensed clinical professional counselor. And only then can you actually start to see clients on your own in the state of Illinois.
Okay. And is that what you are right now? Still the LCPC?
Oh, no, now I'm in Texas. I'm
Okay.
in Dallas. My husband was active military, so we moved around a lot. But now I am in Texas, where I'm an LPC in this state, a licensed professional counselor
Oh my
in
God.
this state. They did not have to take the second exam. So
Oh, wow.
fortunately, they, of course, accepted my license from Illinois. So I still have that license. I'm just now double licensed, 2
That is
states.
so nice to hear. I just like when we're able to transfer over our skill set to a different state because,
Yes,
I hope that the board doesn't expect us to stay in one place.
I
I
know.
know that 2020 definitely opened up doors in terms of how we practice across state lines and making that easier to even serve clients across state lines.
Mhm.
But I always find it's interesting just the different letters because I wasn't introduced for in California. We weren't introduced to any LPC anything until I got my doctorate degree. And I think it was even after that, it was at my job.
Oh,
And they
wow.
said, hey, something is coming from the East Coast. And I'm like, the East Coast got their own letters? And so they were like, they're coming over. And they slowly started to introduce it to the grad schools and such. But it had so many limitations. Like they can do this type of treatment, but they can't serve couples.
Right.
They can do this, but they can't do family. And I'm like, well, what's the point of bringing them on if we can't offload the work, and share the work? And so again, just also sharing with therapists also that are licensed. I'm glad that you had mentioned the differences in the test or a
Mhm.
lack thereof, if you can transfer, is to understand that when you relocate or when you choose to expand your group practice or something like that, you should first look at the licensing requirements
Absolutely.
because you come to California, you might be bound to take a test.
Yeah.
And I know that wouldn't sit well with someone who's been in the field for a long time to sit down and take a test.
Right. Yeah. I lived in Southern Illinois. So I actually was really close to St. Louis, Missouri.
Mhm.
And Missouri's licensure was different. So there were people that wanted to do dual license from Missouri, Illinois. And if they were licensed in Missouri, they had to take that second test to get licensed in Illinois. So
That's
it's a
crazy. I
real thing.
understand
You definitely have
ethics.
to look into it.
Yeah, yeah. I understand ethics if the laws change, but general principles of mental health is just like,
Right.
just transfer my name. We gotta
Absolutely.
license. All right. So tell us a little bit about, because I know that we all work in different locations in the mental health field. What are some categories of places that you have worked and like which ones were your favorite?
Okay, so I have literally worked all the ranges in different jobs. So I've done juvenile justice, mental health, where I was working with um, children that were having some issues at school and have gotten into some trouble, going in, talking to judges, doing cases. Sometimes courts would mandate them to have mental health services. I have done infant and early childhood mental health. So I'm actually working with like childcare providers and home care providers and teaching them that these little bitty people are
Mhm.
just that. They're just little bitty people. And so they have
Yeah.
emotions and they have thoughts, and educating them on that and teaching them how to teach emotional wellness to these children so that they can function better, and maybe they're not just bad, but maybe
Mhm.
something's actually going on in their world. And so I've done that. I have worked with teens in school. So I've been an in-school counselor where I contracted through a community mental health agency, and I would go into particular middle and high schools and work with children there.
Wow.
And now I work with adults.
It's funny how we go up the ranks.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, I loved all the work that I did. My favorite may have been infant early childhood. I think just because it stretched me.
Mhm.
Um, each one was challenging in its own way, but I think that one stretched me the most because I had to attune to the emotional awareness of these very small children, and that these
Mhm.
cries do mean something, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that one probably just stretched me the
Yeah.
most. And I loved it, but then I relocated and life happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I find that working, well, now it's different, but I would say when I was going to school, talking to a lot of like my counterparts, we were all loving like the kids, the teens. For those of us who have thick skin, I would say, because
Mhm.
not the babies, but like the little kids, kids don't have no filter. And
At
you
all.
really have to have a thick skin of if you don't do your job well, they're going to make sure that you know.
Yes.
Adults, not so much. It takes them a minute. But
Mhm.
with children, and I used to work with the littles too. I used to work with Black infant health through my
Okay.
internship. And one of the ways, in terms of how you said it stretched you, it definitely resonates because you definitely have to get out your comfort zone. And for me, not having children yet,
Mhm.
you talk to parents about their children. You're dealing with an entire system, not just the child. You dealing with childcare workers,
Yeah.
the dean of the school, the
Yes.
cafeteria lady, and it's like I learned a rule when I used to work with other people that worked in foster care, and they said we learned that you need to talk to everybody who breathes on the child.
Yes.
I was like, wow. At first I was like, that's crazy, but then when they start sharing their cases, I'm like, oh, it really takes a village.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some clinicians don't have that. I wouldn't even say capacity, because early on you shouldn't have no capacity issues, but
Right.
may not have the mental capacity.
Right. Very true.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot, and they were absolutely right. Whoever spoke that to you, it does take going to these different individuals because they encounter that child differently and they impact that child differently. So you do lots of interviewing, lots of assessing, sitting down and holding space for these different experiences.
Yeah. So we go from, because I know some students are like, okay, so what comes after school? Those are all the questions that they come like, I have like, what is the order? And I'm like, undergrad, grad school, some type of internship, externship, residency, postdoc, and then you get to work, you get a job or you go in a private practice. And so, what happened for you after grad school? Were those all like W-2 jobs outside of like training? And then you went into business?
Juvenile justice mental health was actually my internship during grad school. And I was fortunate that was a community mental health agency that hired me. So when my internship ended, they were like, don't look anywhere else. We would like to keep you on. And so that was actually the contract that took me into school-based counseling. So I was fortunate because that's not everybody's case. Some people have to leave that internship. I quit my job to do my internship. Which, was risky. I was fortunate that my husband was like, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. But I knew that I still wanted to be a wife. I still wanted to be a mom. And I didn't want to work a job all day because at the time I was a supervisor in a bank. So when I say total career change. And so I was like, man, I'll have to go to like hospitals or something and do it at night. And I knew that I still had small kids and I wanted to be able to be home with them. So I sacrificed money to be able to do my internship during the day because this was not a job. This was an internship. So I let go of income to be able to do what mattered more to me, which was to have that time with them.
Yeah. So, I'm always going to sneak in like a nugget for somebody to listen to. Because as I'm listening to you, I'm also thinking about, we see a lot of messages that people don't see, like me and the team, especially when it comes down to therapists wanting help, whether they're interested in my program or not. Sometimes they just DM me and they ask me questions. And if I can answer it, I'll, answer it. And the biggest thing right now that we've been talking about in the community calls or on the podcast is time capacity. Because at first it was like, I don't know if I could do this, then it was financial, but we don't see a lot of financial stuff come up, even though the economy is crazy. It's more about people believing that this is the time for them to make a sacrifice for themselves, not for me, but for themselves. And what tends to come up is parenthood, having a job, making a prior commitment, which all of those are definitely understandable. But I like how you phrase pretty much that this is temporary, like this is a training period. And the nugget that I want to share with either up and rising business owners of any stream of income in the mental health field, or if you already have streams, is every level, like grad school or licensure, every level you go up, it's going to require a training period. And depending on how big the project is, like if you go to a doctoral program, that's a longer training period. And so if we just think about it that way, then we can think about, I need to read a book. I need to go to a live event. I need to go to, Toastmasters to be a better speaker. This is a training tool. And at some point I may have to come back, but it's only because I want to go to the next level or I want to refresh or refine my skill set. But I just wanted to hone in on that because this has been a part of most of our lives all through school. But I keep saying it, sometimes somehow it gets detached when it comes down to our business, but it was so natural to happen because I need to finish grad school. So kids or not, I'm going, and we were all in, but it's something that stops a lot of mental health professionals, I find.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes even grad school kind of teaches us that this is all you need. And when you're done with this, you are now a counselor, you are now a social worker, you are now a psychologist, right? Like you've got the tools and there will always be an investment depending on what your why is, what your goal is. there will always be some level of investment. You just have to decide what that is. Is that time? Is that money? Is that
Mhm.
resources? But there should always be some level of investment to continue to grow.
Yeah. And that's the key, continuing to grow.
Yeah.
And then people, we got to figure out why we're not growing. And
Right.
it's probably because we don't take the time to take care of ourselves.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about business, because I know we got a whole lot of licensed people like in our community. And so after the jobs, when did entrepreneurship come into your world, and what was your first stream of income as an entrepreneur?
So entrepreneurship came into my world when everything else was also changing. My husband was completely done with the military. We were moving from Illinois to Texas. I thought I was going to be able to keep my job. I found out I was not going to be able to keep my job because things changed post-COVID. So I wasn't able to keep the job that I currently had. And I was like, okay, I'll just find a job in Texas, right? Like that was the thing. I'll just find a job. I'll find a job. And for whatever reason, that was not the answer. And it just wasn't sticking. I wasn't even really looking for a job, right? And that is not me. I don't like to be unemployed. So I just was like, okay, I think this is the time to take that step. So I didn't go to grad school thinking I want to be a business owner. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want my own private practice. And I know some people do go in with that thought. I just was like, I want the skill set. If this is what I'm supposed to be doing, then I want the actual tools. I know that I can help people with just my natural ability, but I want like the learned skills. And so that was why I went back to school. So I wasn't seeking private practice. It just kind of found me in a way. And then I was still scared. So I joined someone else's group practice. And I said, okay, this is a good step.
That's a good step, though. A lot of people sit on.
To go in and just be a therapist, but I was still intentional. I had meetings with that group owner. I wanted to understand the behind the scenes. I paid attention to all the paperwork she sent me to sign. Like, oh, okay, I need this, or some things she required I hadn't thought about yet. So I had to go get them for myself to make sure I had my liability insurance, all this documentation that maybe businesses used to provide for me, but now I had to have my own because I was a 1099. So I basically was my own business working under her umbrella, which I know some are fully an employee. And then at a certain point, I kid you not, this deep feeling of there are things waiting for me and I will not get them hiding under somebody else's blessing.
Wow.
And I said, okay. And so I sent the email and was like, hey, I need to transition out. Let me know what that looks like. I was fortunate that her clause allows you whatever clients want to go with, you can. And so I didn't start with zero, which was great. But yeah, so then I transitioned out. It will be 2 years in August.
Wow, congratulations. Okay, birthday number 2. Okay. You said so many things. I like to take notes like I'm in a class when we do these podcasts, because I learned so much that everybody's journey is different, but also just reminding people that there are some journeys that would ease you into entrepreneurship easier than others. But sometimes when we hear entrepreneurship, we feel like we have to do it all by ourselves. And so some of the things that I want to pull out is going into someone else's group practice. And so I like how you framed it, per se, because you went in knowing that maybe at some point you may want to do your own, but you're not sure. And so I think that that's a good step to go in, because once you're an entrepreneur and you start getting clients, it's not as easy you can't just abandon your clients and say, I don't want to be a business owner today. Right. There's a process. And then if you take an insurance, it's a whole nother ball game. And so I think that that's a good move. And then also, as you had mentioned, pay attention. We call the breadcrumbs. Pay attention to the breadcrumbs, but it's something important that you said, which is never assume pretty much that you have everything that pertains to you and your liability. And I know that we talk about that in terms of like digital products and private practice, because we've outright interviewed people for our programs from like the higher tier. And some people are like, yeah, I thought, I tried to do what you were doing. I've been following you for a while. Some people are very intuitive with following my landing pages and all the steps for getting into a program. And then they may try to launch a coaching program and realize like, wait, something ain't working. And it's just like a private practice. Like you copied somebody else's consent form, but you didn't make it your own. Right. They have a different clause for their group practice, but you don't want that clause and you made it your own. This ain't your business. You cloned somebody else's.
Yeah.
And that may be how people start, which is why even coaching exists. Like we give you certain tools, and we like, take it, but personalize it so that you can stand out. And I just want therapists to hear that it's okay with starting out in someone else's business, just to make sure that even you can operate as a 1099, because there is flexibility and you have to learn to work on your own and by yourself without someone telling you what to do.
Right. All that paperwork still has to be filled out, but there's no supervisor checking.
Yes. So what was that like? Because I'm tapping into more of like those who are in private practice. And I think some people don't realize that until after they get in it. And what tends to happen is they start to act like a glorified employee, not realizing it, because now they want somebody to, they say, hold my hand. And I'm like, but that's not the line of work you chose to get in.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some willpower. You have to have self accountability. You also have to be honest with yourself. What am I really doing at this current job that I'm working for somebody else? Why do I think I'm going to show up differently when it's mine? And maybe you will at first, but are you going to stick with it? Like, if you were already behind on your notes, what makes you think that you're going to be caught up on your notes when it's your own practice? It's easier to fall behind when nobody's checking than when you're working for someone else. You know, if you're wanting to join a coaching program, do you really show up and ask the questions and do the homework? And, you know, if you've invested in yourself, are you actually following through with it?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like habits. You know, if you want to be a peer, how about you create the habits right now versus waiting until you get there and then expecting a miracle to happen? Because let's be real, we don't even expect that from our therapy clients. Like, we know it's a process to teach them a skill and to see it, you know, be unfolded. And so who do you work with in terms of your clientele in your private practice?
So I work with an amazing group of individuals that are usually high achievers. They hold a lot of leadership roles. They're responsible for a lot. They wear a lot of hats, and they are overwhelmed. They have a lot of worry, usually because they expect perfection from themselves, even when they give grace to others. And they have great lives, right? And so sometimes they feel bad for not feeling good in that good life. And so I work with individuals that really, it typically shows up as anxiety, even when it's high functioning. It still shows up as anxiety. And most times they realize, or they're ready to get some help because they're going through a life transition. And so it feels, you know, you can manage it when everything's the same every day. But when things start to shift and pivot, they realize that maybe it's not okay. And so it usually shows up in life transition moments.
Yeah. So that's an awesome group. I know a lot of our clinicians, they work with adults. We have a small sector that overlaps with working with, they say, high achievers or people in corporate, or basically someone climbing the ladder, but they have all the symptomology going on in the background that is impacting them at work and in other places. But one question or conversation I would say that, you know, constantly comes up is, how do therapists ourselves take care of ourselves when also serving different clienteles, but especially what you just mentioned, because that's a lot in that Pandora's box,
right?
What somebody has to hold, you know, and because they're high achievers, it just takes them to another level in terms of anxiety, their mindset, or setbacks. So how do you manage like your self-care? Because I don't think the therapists do this enough.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. We do not do this enough. I don't like hypocrites. And so if I find myself doing the opposite of what I'm teaching, then I have to make a change. I often have told my family I have to fire myself as my secretary, because I will ignore my boundary and I will squeeze somebody in, or I will make them later. And it's really unfair to them because they're not getting the best version of me. And so I set up more automation into my business. And so if someone reaches out and they need to schedule or reschedule, I don't tell them, or I don't ask them what will work. I resend them the link where they can go request an appointment. It is not approved and official until I click a button. So they don't get to just click in, and it has certain boundaries. So now the system honors my boundary when I really wasn't. So it made the schedule actually be what it needed to be, which has worked out fantastic. And then I intentionally do time audits to make sure that I'm still meeting my clients where they are. Like, oh, well, why am I giving 8 hours worth of sessions when everybody's scheduling between 11 and 1? I really just need to be here between 11 and 1, right? And so that's been the biggest self-care for me, because that was the thing that was taking the most from me. I was helping a lot of people, or at least I thought I was, but I was completely wasted at the end of the day. I had nothing to give to my family, which I've already said really matters to me. And I had nothing to give to myself. So, which is also super important. So that's been the biggest thing that I've done for self-care. But also I get up, I get dressed. I am completely 100% teletherapy as a business. I am not a person that can just sit around in a real top and pajama bottoms. That does not work for me. You're going to get casual Alondra instead of professional Alondra. So I get up and I get dressed. I walk my dog in the morning, so I get some movement in, or I do a video or exercise. So I get that movement in my day. I intentionally take a lunch break, even if the time shifts, but I step away from work and I just sit down and eat. Right? Like I'm not eating and checking emails, eating and returning phone calls. Like I actually take a break. And I love to travel. I love reading books. I love listening to music. So I find other ways to make sure that I'm refilling and not just pouring out into others.
I'm like, the most important piece you said was eating. Like eating and not, because the bigger word, overarching word is boundaries. That's what I really hear you saying. Like there should be a whole program or module on boundaries. Like we call it saying no, but we usually say no to like opportunities, but also saying no to just, things that don't serve you. And one of the things I actually learned this in one of the CE workshops that I took at one point around like health coaching was I'm like, oh, I want to do bariatric evaluation. So I did like an eating disorder workshop and they talked about mindful eating. And of course, if you have a good instructor, they always make you turn it on yourself. So they were like, when is the last time that you did some mindful eating, or are you watching TV? And I'm like, 1000%,
right?
Not even 80, just 1000%. I'm a mindless eater. And this is why we don't digest food. This is why we're tired. But even the simplicity of carving out time to take a break. And then it was something else you mentioned about just having the flexibility that you don't have to be a stickler with, if my lunch don't happen at 12 o'clock, like a job, I'm not going to have lunch and I need to skip lunch. No, you need to take lunch because it's part of your self-care. Because, I don't know about y'all, but I get hangry.
Me too.
What I'm saying? And we can't hide that. I know my husband was like, oh my Lord, like you rev it up, guys. She's at a 3. Let's get it. So imagine if that comes out at your business,
right?
And we think that it can't, but it can't. But boundaries, taking time out to eat. And also something that you said at the beginning around, I do a box, because you were like, pretty much I'm boxing myself into this 11 to 1. Why am I working 11 to 6? It does not make sense.
Right.
And it comes from time audit. So can you explain to people what a time audit is? Because I think it's good for them to hear about it from other people other than me.
So I literally go back I typically do it at the end or very beginning of each month. And I look at everyone that's scheduled and kept. So I look at everyone that's scheduled. I also look at everyone that kept their appointments Monday through Friday. I have some that are recurring, but a lot of them are kind of session to session, whatever their work schedule allows. And I literally mark it out, right? Like 8 to 8. I do not see people through those hours, but that's what's on my paper. And then I do Monday through Friday and I just exit. Like, okay, there should be 4 exits. If I find that 3 to 4 exits are happening in that month on that same time, then that is a time that I'm going to offer in the next month. And then at the end of that quarter, I look at the quarter and see, did that stay? Was that consistent? Because sometimes, right, in different seasons, it even shifts. So how they want to be seen in the summer might look different than how they want to be seen like Halloween or Christmas, right? It might look a little different. So then it also helped me to learn the habit and rotation and ebbs and flows of my business. So now when I'm scheduling vacations, I look back and say, okay, June is really busy. July, not so much. Well, last year I took vacation in June. It didn't really work that well, but this year I have vacation scheduled for July. So it's easier for me to be off. I'm not moving people around because I am working and my life fits right first and then my business. And it works easier because I've assessed the time that my clientele actually needs.
That's really, really good, because a phrase that comes up is cash flow as well. Pretty much you described it when you looked at your schedule, but specifically when time would be easier to take off. Yes, we want to design a life first business, but also it would be a lot easier if we don't have to, like you said, move around people.
Right. Yeah. Because it wasn't like it was for an event. I just took off. So I could take off in July. That's easy.
Right. And I want to highlight that because this is like Mental Health Awareness Month is in May and the summer is right around the corner. I mean, technically a lot of kids get out in May. College kids get out in May. Mm-hmm. People graduate in May. And sometimes we don't assume, I know we've talked about it in TTA, people are like, oh, I don't see kids. I'm like, but you see their parents.
Right.
And parents, I don't know about y'all, parents need a break. Like when my son was out for like the little track thing, because he's on and off track out here in California, I needed a vacation after his break because that wasn't a break for me. That was 6 weeks with a 7-year-old. Come on. Right. Like, that's like 5 family vacations and not a vacation, And so, you want to carve out that time. And also I want to add, some people may be thinking about it in terms of months because that's what we're used to with going to school. Like we're out for 60 days straight, but could entrepreneurs also carve out time to take a week here, a full 4-day weekend here? You make up your own because it's not a holiday, but just because you want it off and being okay to spread out your time, but especially paying attention to cash flow with like June is my slow month. So being intentional, I know you said that in the beginning, like being intentional with the next year in June, if I'm still serving the same clientele, I need to just call it. That's going to be my month off. If I got 1 or 2 clients, I'll move them, but everybody else can come in anyway. So I'm okay.
Right. Yeah. And you don't have to just do this lump sum of time off. You may find that you work better that way and all right, go for it. Exactly. I prefer consistent time off. Right.
Yeah,
like just
know your season.
Dips in the breaks, those work for me. I function better that way. And so, yeah, absolutely. But going back to the time audit, right? If you know when your people show up, it's super easy to say, oh, really? I only need to be a 4-day-a-week business. Yes. I only need to be a 3-day-a-week business. But you don't realize that you're sitting there frustrated because that particular week isn't full. But if you actually take the time to look at it, you would see, oh, every week kind of flows like this. I have 3 really heavy days. And then I have a day with 2 people, a day with 3 people, right? And maybe you want 5 or 6 in your schedule. And so if you actually are doing those time audits, you can see that you really can have the life and the business that you're desiring. You just have to do the not as fun part, the back office work, but that's really how the businesses will thrive.
Yeah, I agree. Paying attention to patterns, people. Yes. And sitting down and carving out the time to do it. That's what we mean by working on your business.
Yes.
Versus being an employee and being told what to do.
Yeah.
So after private practice, what else do you have going on, like between starting your own private practice and then any other streams of income that you have? Let's talk about diversification or even what you tried.
Absolutely. So shout out to DTA. I'm grateful that I joined that program before I even started my business. So I couldn't actively apply everything, but I was in the works of starting it. And so I knew that I had a strong foundation in my business, which makes it absolutely necessary to have that. Then you can go try to do something else. But that's my primary stream of income. So I needed to know that thing was going to be okay. And I was able to do automations. And so my business can keep moving. Even if I didn't have the money to hire other people, I could afford to pay systems to be my employees, right? So consultations are still happening. People can schedule themselves for the appointments. They don't need to come to me. They can reschedule. These different systems are in place that can still manage. And then I have stepped more into transformational speaking. So I wanted to move from 1-to-1, which I absolutely love, and I don't think I'll ever give up. I say that today. I'll play this back to myself.
You have a little bit of it in you.
But I wanted to go into the 1-to-many that Dr. TK teaches us about. And I knew I wanted to help more people. I believed that what I was teaching was life-changing, and I felt like everybody needed to learn about it. And so it moved me into the 1-to-many, and I do that through speaking engagement. So I create and host my own workshops. Most of them are virtual. I have done some in person. I still do continuing education trainings for those infant and early childhood educators in Illinois. I still do their continuing education workshops for them. I speak at conferences. I speak at retreats. And so that's been the lane that I have been moving in. And now I'm moving even to a higher level of that and starting to do corporate speaking engagements. And so building my own bundles that I can offer to corporations where I don't just come in and do a one-time speech, which is fantastic, but they keep me on as a consultant and I work with their managers or I work with their team members to like, okay, we've got this great information from that speech, but now implement it directly to our department. So speaking even in itself has many layers and levels to it. I am learning, but I really am enjoying it. It stretches me again. I would rather be in the background a lot of days, but once I'm in front of someone and I get to pour into them, it just invigorates me and I love it.
Oh my gosh. I wish that all these, like, so when we're recording this, y'all, we're in the midst of doing like a boot camp, and the 3 streams of income that I have, I'll call it slowing down, like going backward. Cause some people jump over to, as you know, digital products. And I'm like, that's a whole nother like master's degree. And even though you can sell an ebook quick, if you know marketing, it's still another degree. And I'm starting to slow therapists down with focusing on actually every word that you mentioned. We talk about clinical supervision, but we talk about consulting, trainings, workshops, and then some people want to go into the CE realm. And one of the things that we're highlighting right now is you already have a gift for what you do one-on-one. You've mastered it, especially if you're licensed. So wouldn't it make more sense if you wanted to step away from doing mostly one-on-one? Wouldn't it make more sense if you just take the same client avatar and just multiply it times 5, 10, 15, 100 people? And then what if you just took one concept that you do in therapy for like 1 week? And what if you just help those people apply it to a certain part of their life or business or whatever, in a one-to-many realm? And I love the way that you positioned it, because it's like literally one thing is leading to the other. And then you just keep going up the ladder and you realize it stretches you, but not in a way where it makes you want to throw in the towel, because it is stemmed from your first stream that was set up in such a intentional and organized way where you love it, but you can do more impact the way that you desire. And I really hope that when therapists are listening to this, if they are sitting in a state of fear, this is why it's imperative that you hone in on whatever. It don't have to be private practice for everybody, right? But whatever the first stream of income is, make sure that it is set up in a way where you can step away from it, as Alondra has spoke about, so that when you go to these other streams of income, it's not stressful, it's fun. Making more money should be fun. Making a bigger impact should be fun. And so you have mentioned events, and I know that you have been to some of our events. And I'm bringing this up because in the industry that I listen to a lot of like digital product coaching, and they harp on like live events. Therapists got excited with live events, when we were locked down, like, ooh, because they were isolated more forcefully. Right. And then after about 2022 going into 2023, we started to see a dip, at least within the therapist community. They like to network, but when it comes down to making an effort to like go to an event to maybe grow your business versus just meeting each other, it seems to be something that's stuck. And so can you talk about your experience at like going to any in-person event and what that does for you when you're in rooms?
Yeah, so it is like getting an IV at the hospital. You sit there and everything that is coming in is exactly what you need in that present moment in your life, right? And so there is absolutely nothing else like it. It is invigorating. You feel energized, you feel inspired, you feel ready, like you can do it. All these things happen in that room because it was curated specifically for you. If you signed up, you wanted to be in that space for that topic, right? And so I did attend one of Dr. TK's live events, and I'm looking forward to the next one I'm able to attend. And it was fantastic. And she has separate topics, but you had to choose your topic before you went. I chose speaking. I was kind of speaking, but not really yet. But everything that was for my topic was literally for my topic. So your brain had to stay focused, right, on that one thing, because I can kind of pick up a couple of different things and do them well, but this caused me to focus enough to do this one thing great, right? And so then every idea that you're flooded with is about this topic. And so she's literally handing you the blueprint to make this work. But then you have to go fill it in to make it personal, like we already talked about today, right? And so that opportunity or any opportunity that I've gone to an in-person event is just inspiring, and you can't even describe it fully because there's nothing like it. So yes, it's great to go to the networking events. I enjoy going to those. I like to meet new people and connect with them and, oh, how can we work together? You know, these kind of things, or just maybe it's a new friend.
Yeah.
But there is nothing like going to an in-person event that is specifically for the phase that you are in on your journey, because from the time you get there to the time you leave, everything there is pouring into you to nourish you and fulfill you so that you can go out and actually do the things successfully. And I'm a person that likes good chances at success. So knowing that I've made this wise investment that I then can go forward and do the thing is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because again, like we're in a field automatically where we're isolated.
Yeah.
And then we go into entrepreneurship that makes us more isolated. And then we feel like we are the only one going through business the way that we're going through business. That makes us isolated. And then when an opportunity presents itself, people can make a choice to go. And I'm not just talking about my event. I'm talking about any event. I don't care if it's you like sewing. You know what I'm saying? If they're having an in-person event, I like the analogy of the IV, but really being intentional and focused with why you're going in the room. One of the things that we are a little bit more, I'm gonna say anal about with like driving it into the participants when they sign up is, at this date, I need you, because we usually create a community around it. I want you to come into that community and declare, or on a sheet of paper, a form that we send out, I need you to declare what stream of income for us, because it's business that you're coming in with, because I want you to walk in consuming the information to that part of your brain, like how you had mentioned it with speaking. And then I want you to make a map, because I may say you're going to walk away with a launch map. Now, a launch map for one table can be group practice. Another one can be solo practice because they're new to me, and other streams of income. Because I know we've done that at both of our bigger conferences. And that's one of the biggest feedbacks that I received, because we ran it like a mastermind. It was just more people. And that you're going to be curated in a group with people that are like-minded around that arena that you're in. But the biggest component outside of the adrenaline rush is now you got to come home with the map. So this is why intentionality is so important, because if you don't know why you are walking into the room and you cannot picture like even what the last day will be like before you go in, like you should have some type of excitement around like, this is what I expect, so that way when you leave, you're excited about implementing, because coming to the event is not the hardest, even though it seems like people make it the hardest thing to do. That's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing to do is implement when you leave, because you have to keep up that fire. And if you don't have, like we call it therapist friends, or you don't have some type of accountability group, or you don't have a community like the ones that we create with other therapists per se with those titles, then it's going to be pretty hard to me to scale when you're completely by yourself.
Yes.
You don't have it.
I absolutely agree. And also, in addition to that, I will also say come in and do it afraid, right? Like, and what I mean by that is get in the room, make the comments, ask the questions, share whatever your level of knowledge is. Don't come in with like a scarcity mindset, like, oh, I've got this good idea, but I'm not going to say anything. Bounce the ideas off of the people that you're around, because they may pour into you. They're not trying to take from you, right? If you have this abundance mindset, then there's room for all of us in here. And so maybe it's somebody else that also wants to be a speaker, but they're not talking about what I'm talking about. And so I bounce my idea off of them, something that they've done that works. They share it with me, and that just adds to what I'm going to do. But yeah, I absolutely agree that you have to take that fire that's in you, and then you have to do something. And one of the big things that Dr. TK has fussed at me about, but also helped me in, is to take fast, messy action. So when that adrenaline is there, when that fire is there, do something while you're still at the conference, or as soon as you get home from the conference, because everything's running and drilling inside of you for that. If you wait, that fire will dim down. And that's you won't do as much as you could have. You still might take some action, but you won't do as much. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be intentional.
That's good. That's good. And I'm glad that you brought up messy action, because I hear different people talking about messy action in a good way and then a not good way. And I'm like, just think about it as done is better than perfect.
Yes.
If you don't like the word messy, that's fine. I just say messy because we try to perfect everything as providers because everything got to be in order with a diagnosis. I mean, that is the way that our brain is trained. And it is unfortunate because that's part of the unlearning part that a lot of clinicians don't understand. I'm like, I'm not just trying to help you unlearn maybe some self-taught things, especially related to entrepreneurship that is not serving you. But I know that we've been conditioned from going through K through 12, like little herds and sheeps from the bell, to then going into grad school. And honestly, starting in undergrad, well, even in K through 12, you're given your path of what you're supposed to do. And then when you go to college, you tell them what you want to do and they still give you a path. And then as you had mentioned, going to a live event, we may give you a path of how you need to come into the event and how you need to leave. But it's totally up to you to create your own syllabus when you leave to keep the fire going. Even if that means, as you had mentioned as well, again, just highlighting the power of community. Go in that room and your goal should always be to walk away with 2 people's contact information. Ideally, somebody you can talk to after the event that has something in common with you. And if you do have 2 streams of income that are different, then at least you can bounce ideas off of one another because you can still feed each other.
Right.
You know? And so I know that you shared a wealth of your journey with us. And I always like to do some type of reflection because some people live in the rearview mirror. And then some people are able to look back in the rearview mirror just to do a reflection to keep going like forward. So if you could give any type of tips, suggestions, or advice to yourself when you were first starting entrepreneurship, what are some things that you would share with her to keep her head high? Because she'll have no idea what's about to happen.
Okay, so I think 2 things come to mind. The first thing is you are enough. Trust that what's already in you is enough for you to start and not expect to be this 20-year veteran entrepreneur when you are starting your business. So I would absolutely tell myself that you are enough to start this business. And the second thing is to trust the learning that I was getting at the time, right? Grad school does not teach us how to be entrepreneurs. It does not teach us how to be entrepreneurs. It teaches us how to be mental health professionals. It does not teach us how to be entrepreneurs. And so I was grateful that at the beginning of my journey into entrepreneurship, I was gaining teaching from someone that actually had done this and had made the mistakes and done the errors and learned from them and curated this opportunity for me to learn how to ethically start my business as a private practice owner. So I would tell myself to trust this foundation that I'm building. Like, I'm not going to miss a step because somebody's walking me through it, you know? And if I do, I can catch myself and I can correct it along the way. That mistakes are okay because they're just a part of the journey. So I am enough and trust the process.
Listen, that is so good. I'm like, I can think about so many different levels of clinicians that need to hear that, whether it's they're still in school, they're debating where they're going to work. Should I do 9 to 5, entrepreneurship, or both? Everybody needs to hear that message at a different level because it has a different meaning with like every level that you go at. And so I definitely appreciate you. And you know that already. Where can people find you? I know that we're going to link up your information in the show notes, but where can people find you in terms of like platforms or websites? I know we'll link up like websites and stuff.
Yeah. So on social media, I am known as Mrs. Evolve, MRSEVOLVE, no lines or dashes. And that's on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just even thinking about what you just said with the reflection in your name, like evolve, like that is like evolution. All right. So everybody, we want to thank her for coming on the Mental Health Awareness Month, shining some light on mental health providers with all the work that she is doing. And I love hearing updates from our community members because I always learn plenty of things that's new. Like I didn't even know about the dancing in the beginning, you know, the journey of working in group practice to shifting over. It just puts everything in context when we hear things like a case study. And that's one of the reasons why we do it, so that we can see how things build on top of one another. So everybody, make sure that you go and send her a DM, let her know how you love this podcast episode, shoot her a follow as well. And we look forward to having more great mental health providers on the podcast over the Mental Health Awareness Month. You all have a great day. Subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel, and leave us, what was your biggest takeaway from all the nuggets and seasons of her business and career that she shared? We would love to hear from you. All right, y'all. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.